everyone. I'm Stephanie Mann, and this is the Safe Kids Now show. And I am so excited to have with us today a lady I've known for several years, and she is Adia Lancaster, and she's an expert educator in the field of human trafficking. Having spoken to a wide variety of audiences that range from school-age kids to professionals, politicians, and government agencies. Adia holds a Bachelor of Arts degree from the University of California, San Diego, and that's in human development. And Adia currently serves on the Southern Nevada Human Trafficking Task Force as chairman of the Education Committee. She is also recognized by the former Attorney General of Nevada and also serves as secretary for the 6th consecutive year on the Congressional Award Council for Nevada. So I am so excited to have her join me today. So welcome, Adia.
Thank you, Stephanie. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, it's so good to see you. And thank you for sharing your expertise on this very, very important topic. You know, one of the things that is pretty scary to most parents is keeping your kids safe. And here is an article. This is from Texas. In Texas alone, more than 79,000 children are being trafficked for sex, according to a study by the University of Texas in Austin. Maybe we need you to enlighten us about child sex trafficking, what we can do, what your work has been involved in. So how did you get started in this field in the first place?
Well, I actually learned first about human trafficking in 2011. I went to a conference at a church here, the International Church of Las Vegas. It was a conference about human trafficking, and a mother shared her story about her daughter who was trafficked here in Las Vegas. The lieutenant at that time of Vice also spoke about their experience with these cases, and I was just appalled. I couldn't believe that this was a crime that was happening in my community, like underneath my own nose, and I had no idea that this was going on or even an issue. And so from that, it just propelled me into wanting to dig deeper and to expose this issue and educate others about this issue that's impacting our children and our families and our neighborhoods.
You know, it's such a huge problem. And we have people, unaccompanied minors, coming over the border and into Texas and Arizona, New Mexico, and California. And it should be alarming to all of us that we have unaccompanied minors and predators are waiting for them. There is no doubt in my mind that some of these kids are going to be exploited. So now, how did you actually, and tell me what you do to help educate young people about this problem?
So our main focus is education through the use of presentations and media. When we first started educating on this issue in 2013, we produced a documentary called Surviving Sin City, which can be viewed online on YouTube, and just started getting involved in the community with the task force and just outreach, making connections with schools, with community groups, with churches, to just educate our children, educate our families, our parents about this issue, because just like me, a lot of people didn't even know that this existed, you know, at that time. I think now in 2021, we're starting to hear more about human trafficking through, you know, these national media cases like Jeffrey Epstein and, you know, things that have been happening with other cases. So, you know, it's a little bit more widespread and talked about, but there still is this underlying issue that people still need to understand the basics of human trafficking, because it's so easy to kind of gloss over and think it looks this one certain way when it's actually a very complex issue.
Well, tell us a little bit about how do we see how do you tell people what to look for? What are we looking for here?
Well, we are looking for, if you want to, predators are all about, they are opportunists.
Right.
So they are looking to exploit vulnerable individuals. And of course, young children, adolescents, even young adults all fall into that category of being vulnerable. And a lot of times it's those children who maybe are experiencing low self esteem, who are maybe unhappy at home. There is maybe they're coming from a broken home, or they're just not supervised by their parents. So maybe they are coming from a two-parent family home, but both of their parents are working and there's no adult supervision. So they have this, this time to, be exposed to a lot. And especially if they're online, which a lot of recruitment is happening
Yeah.
online right now, there's a lot of vulnerability that can happen there, and a lot of trickery that can happen, because predators are all about, deceiving and manipulating these individuals. And so they know what to look for. They know exactly what to spot. And so we really need to be cognizant of, those kids, especially who are not, maybe, or who also run away from their home
Right.
as well. Those are also vulnerable populations. Foster care children are also vulnerable as well. So,
This is such a huge group because the taxpayers in this country right now are spending $220 million a day on child abuse and neglect. So you can see, anybody can see with that kind of figure that we have a lot of vulnerable children out there. So one of the things that we've been advocating for years is know your neighbors, because there's definitely a check and balance on people that know each other, but it's
mhm,
the social isolation that can, it really worries me with COVID because,
mhm.
children are locked into these homes that are abusing them. Oh my goodness. What do you say to people that are witnessing that or know that that's going on, or what can they do? Can somebody do?
Yes, that's a good question, and it's very difficult to navigate something like that. Um, if if they know for sure that a child is in an unsafe situation, then they need to call the authorities and let the authorities handle it. So that is calling local law enforcement, that's calling local service providers that could possibly, go into that home and help that child, pull that child out of that situation. But it's also, as a neighbor, if you have access to that family, it's really it begins with the conversation and having that dialogue, getting to know that family situation, getting to know, what that child is experiencing, and then maybe also inviting that child to, experience other situations where that they can be, involved with other kids in the neighborhood, exposing them to other opportunities where they're not in that unsafe situation. But maybe if you have an opportunity to bring them out into other resources, is also another positive way that they can get involved. But it's really difficult to navigate such a situation like that unless you have a good relationship with that
Right.
family or with that individual.
Right. You need to have a trust relationship with your neighbors,
Hmm.
which has been very difficult during this social isolation with COVID. And, I know, and I've heard over and over again about the problems with the internet because our kids are now at home.
Hmm.
And predators know that children get on the gaming, get on music.
Hmm.
So they're out there. And what can parents do to protect their children from, the internet problem?
Hmm. Well, there's this is a huge topic right now.
Yeah.
And where to start. First of all, as a parent, you really have to be aware of all of the different ways that a trafficker can basically get into the doorway of your home, through that powerful cell phone that they have access to, or that iPad that they have access to, because it's not only, like you said, it's through gaming. So any opportunity they have to interact with the outside world through chatting, that's an opportunity for a predator to gain access to your child. So it's making sure your child's profiles are private. It's making sure that you have a good trust relationship with your child, where they can come to you if something, kind of strikes them as odd. For example, if their, Instagram profile is private, they can still receive direct messages from individuals. And so if they're receiving direct messages, if your child is 13 and they're receiving DMs from an adult man or even adult women, they should feel comfortable with you going to you to talk about, this situation, and helping you navigate that situation with your child. It's monitoring their use of being on the phone, and all the time. I've heard of parents also setting limits for their children. So not having their children go to bed with their devices, where their devices are taken from them after, they go to bed, because again, you're just inviting that predator into your home. You don't know what your child is doing when you're, asleep. So any opportunity you have to really, one, have conversations with your child, be interested in what they're interested in. So it's like, if they're, interested in playing this game, try to play with them, ask them questions about that game, monitor their social media profiles and what kind of friends that they have on those profiles, or what they're watching on TikTok, and, things of that nature. It's really being aware of your child's, profiles, what they have access to, and getting involved and having those conversations and feeling comfortable, and having them teach you, not coming at it where everything and you're, trying to control what they're doing, but how can we work together as a team to make sure that you're safe, and to make sure that, you're also aware that there aren't safe people out there. There are people that want to trick you. There are people that are trying to take advantage of you, and help them to navigate that better, giving them those tools. Yeah.
That is so critical. It's so important to be part of your children's lives. I think everybody sort of knows that, but I know parents get very busy, and for some parents, the computer, the TV, or their phone, because, we talk about the computer, but the phone is equally bad if it's not monitored properly. One man was telling me that he had a daughter that was, they tried to take the phone away. She's 11 years old, okay? And they tried to take the phone away at night, and she burst into tears. "You can't take my phone. You can't take my phone. I always have my phone." And they laid down the law and said, "No, you're not having your phone at night anymore." So they took the phone away, and she cried herself to sleep. And at 11 o'clock, the phone rang. And the father picked it up and didn't say anything. And it was a man on the other end of the line
Wow.
that said something like, "Hi, honey, how are you? And missed you," and blah, blah, blah. And he went, "Oh my God." Well, we have to be so much more vigilant than we used to be. And we cannot trust any of these appliances anymore. So what are you doing today that, is going to educate more people or more kids? Or how do we do this? This is a monster of a problem.
It is. It really is a monster of a problem. And it really, again, just begins with relationship and conversation. So it's building relationships with other like-minded, people like you. So for me, I'm a mom of young children right now. So it's really, how can I connect with other moms of young children, right? And have these conversations, which aren't necessarily comfortable conversations to have, and sometimes you might strike somebody and they might get offended, or
Yeah.
but we have to be able to, in the name of protecting our children, in the name of, creating an environment where they can be happy and safe and thrive, we have to have these uncomfortable conversations because it's only going to get worse. And our children know much more about technology than we do, right? Because they're growing up with it. So I think it's really just trying to find your realm of influence when it comes to these issues and trying to impact your immediate, circles of influence, right? And learning more about this issue. Again, we don't know what we don't know. So we have to also be willing to learn more about human trafficking. We have to be willing to learn more about how we can protect our children. And we have to be willing, to learn different perspectives and really, again, share that information, because we can't hoard that information. It needs to be shared. It needs to be expressed. And it needs to be practiced. And that's the hardest thing too, is like, how can we might know all the information, but then putting it into practice, like implementing it, is a whole, other issue. And so how can we practice it and support each other in, when we do fail, or when we're not, when things aren't working out, and encourage one another, because this is something that we can't battle alone. And we're not doing this alone. All families are going through this right now.
Right.
All families are experiencing this, like just as we all experienced COVID. So we all have, a say in this conversation, and it's just a matter of breaking through and really being willing to, listen and not be in denial too. Because I think, again, parents are like, oh, it won't happen to my children. I know how to protect my children. They know better. But I'm sorry, that's not the case. Like, it can happen to anybody. No one is immune. No one is excluded from this conversation. You have to be a part of this conversation, and maybe you are doing the right things. Well, share what you're doing that was working with you and your children. Share that, because that could be helpful for somebody else.
Right.
So yeah, it's for me, I really, really want to speak more to parents and really learn to empower our kids, to equip them, because what they're experiencing, not only online, but even at school, they're encountering very traumatic experiences, things that they cannot emotionally and cognitively process properly, right? Things that we've never experienced before. And then you add social media on top of that, and that's a huge cocktail of, it's a mess. So
Definitely.
so it's like,
Let me just say, we're going to take a little break, but when we come back, I want to ask Adita to tell us some of the most memorable accomplishments in fighting against human trafficking. So we will be back in just 30 seconds.
Hello, this is Najesti from Butter Me Essentials Natural Hair and Body Company. We are located in Brooklyn, New York. We are a family-owned company, which is run by my husband Vaden and I. Do you have hair that is hard to manage? Having trouble with hair growth? Is your skin always dry? No problem. Butter Me Essentials is here with the solution. We specialize in hair butters, pomades, hair elixirs, shampoos, conditioners, luxury soaps, body butters, lotion bars, perfumes, scrubs, and so much more. All of our products is made with natural and organic ingredients such as shea butter, cocoa butter, mango butter, Jamaican black castor oil, avocado oil, Oregon oil, and essential oils. There is no sulfates, petroleum, mineral oils, or parabens, just all natural goodness. If you would like to order our products, check out our website at buttermeessentials.com, buttermeessentials.com, or call 646-524-3351, 646-524-3351. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. Remember, like our motto says, you deserve to be buttered.
I want to remind our listeners that you can, if you have questions for Adia, All you have to do is write your question in the chat box, which is on the right side of your computer, and we will answer your questions. Okay? So let's go back to asking Adia the question about what was some of the most memorable achievements in fighting against human trafficking.
I would say the first one was when we premiered our documentary Surviving Sin City in 2013. We had an amazing event for the community. We asked some of those individuals who were in the documentary to be on the panel, and we had the news media come out. We had tables of resources. We had like about 200 people attend, and that was just a really great launch into human trafficking awareness. And my second most memorable achievement would definitely have to be being involved with the passing of AB 67. And that was our first piece of legislation that made human trafficking a crime in the state of Nevada. And
Wow.
so that was brought forth by former Attorney General Catherine Cortez Masto. And the way that we were involved, we were just educating the community about, why this bill is so important, it brought protections, it brought tools for law enforcement to use, and just greater tools to actually persecute these predators. And then I went up to Carson City twice. Once when the bill was first introduced, and to stand up and say that I support this bill. And the second time was actually when the governor signed the bill, and I was able to also interview Governor Sandoval at the time too about this remarkable piece of legislation. So I would say
How long ago was that?
That was in 2013.
Oh, okay.
So our legislation
ahead.
happens every 2 years. Our legislator happens every 2 years, and ever since then, I've been involved in just educating people about human trafficking legislation that's coming up. But there still needs to be a lot of work done in educating our legislators too about human trafficking.
That's great that you got a law passed in the state of Nevada. Do you happen to know what's going on in other states? Are they following your lead, or are they behind or ahead, or do you have any ideas what's going on in any of the other states?
Not really. I know that California, since it's our neighbor, they're a pretty progressive state. Sometimes some of the laws that they have passed, we don't necessarily agree with here, and don't think that it's the best way to combat human trafficking. For example, trying to pass laws that will legalize prostitution, that won't protect young individuals who are being sex trafficked, things of that nature. But I don't really have my eye on what other states are doing, and I'm sure that there are a lot of great work that's happening in other states, like New York, for example. Or
don't we have a law? Don't we have legalized prostitution in the state of Nevada?
We do, and it's only illegal in specific counties with a certain threshold of population numbers. So I don't recall what that number is, but Clark County, where the strip is located, doesn't fall into that threshold. But a lot of people, again, think that prostitution is legal on the strip, and
I
it is
know
not.
they do. I know they do. The police department, they get frustrated about that, because people come in this state thinking, they're going to have a great time or whatever, and just find out and get arrested if they are trying to get involved in prostitution. So anyway, it's a little confusing to people coming into the state of Nevada, because, unfortunately, we've got that motto, what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. And the police department wanted to change that to what happens in Vegas, you get arrested for. So I don't know how that's going, but we are reducing some of our police departments all over the country.
Yeah.
And children are the ones that pay the biggest price when things change so dramatically, such as reducing police departments. And do you have any thoughts about the police and illegal prostitution or child sex trafficking?
Yes, I believe that our law enforcement here are doing a great job in really combating this issue. We have dedicated investigators, dedicated officers who work specifically with the unit to really, just work on this issue. I don't know a better way to say it, but to really crack down, I guess, on this crime. They are doing a lot of work in cracking down on the buyers of sex, on getting services for the victims of trafficking, and also really trying to crack down on those traffickers as well. So they're doing the best that they can. There's still, again, in every facet, there needs to be education, and more training when it comes to those who are not specifically involved with the unit that combats, human trafficking or sex trafficking. But it's, with everything, it's a work in progress. They are open to it. There's been more collaboration with other, law enforcement units as well. So I think, just baby steps. It just takes baby steps. And we do need our law enforcement officers. Traffickers are very dangerous individuals. We need them to protect our victims. We need them to crack down on this crime because it is hurting our communities. Yeah.
Yeah, I might mention that something anybody can do is contact groups within your area to find out what's going on in the field of child sex trafficking and get to know the people that are working on this. And one thing that I did, because I did do that, and I asked a Uber driver on my way to the airport if he had seen anything suspicious. And he told me, he was kind of surprised that I asked him. And he told me about incidences where young girls had gotten into his Uber car. And of course, they have to ask if you're 18 or over. But she said she was at the University of, but he was very suspicious.
Mhm.
And when I told him I was working with someone at the, on child sex trafficking, he gave me 3 pages of information. Now, anybody can do that. Anybody can talk to your Uber drivers because you don't have to pay an Uber driver. Like this young girl can be transported from one place to another and not have to put out any money whatsoever. And it's very scary for her, but she's stuck. She's stuck. But we can do a better job of helping out. And as a result of my turning over this information, they found some places where there were multiple cubicles for child sex trafficking. And so they had them under surveillance. So
Wow.
it's important to keep your ears open, pay attention to what's going on around you. And actually, we can make a huge difference. You said something about your video, and I'd love to have people watch your video. Can you give us a way to hook into that? I think it's on YouTube, right?
Mhm. It is. Yes. If you just Google Surviving Sin City, and it is on YouTube. That's the title of
Okay.
it. You can view it on.
Surviving Sin City. So you go www.youtube.com/surviving Sin City, correct?
I don't know if that will come up. If you just Google search it in the search engine and you
Okay,
just search Surviving Sin City, or in YouTube, you just search it in YouTube, then it should come up as the
great.
documentary. Yes.
Okay, I hope everybody watches that video and it helps them out. Do you have any final thoughts you want to share with us that might be helpful?
I noticed that there was a question about what are the percentage of children who are being abducted. I don't have those numbers for you, but I can say this. Every year, the Las Vegas Metro Police Department puts out numbers of children that they've identified as victims of sex trafficking. And I can tell you that a majority of those who are identified are actually from the state of Nevada. So it's always around 65 to 70% of those individuals who are from the state of Nevada. And I can also tell you that about 20% of those children who are identified are runaways, or they've been reported as runaways. And typically you do not see, children being abducted or kidnapped and, thrown into the thrust of sex trafficking. What happens is that they are recruited, they are groomed, they fall prey to these individuals who are offering security, who are offering love, attention, who are offering these gifts, and they are lured into it in that way. So it is not, what you kind of may see in the movies as, being a victim of human trafficking. They are groomed for it. These predators, these traffickers will take the time to invest in these individuals until they have their complete trust, and then can sell them and use them, for profit, because they've trained them, they've brainwashed them into thinking that they are loved and that they can count on this individual for whatever they need. And now he needs money. So I'm going to do this for us. I'm going to do this for our life together, because I love this individual, and I'm going to go ahead and do what I need to do. So that's typically what happens when it comes to sex trafficking. And labor trafficking is kind of similar too. But most of our cases, or what we talk about here in Las Vegas, is prevalent to sex trafficking.
Yeah, can you tell us anything about what happens to these girls when you try and get them out of these? Because this is such a huge problem. Once you find a young lady and encourage her to get out of the trafficking, what happens to her?
Well, the thing is, it's very similar to domestic violence relationships, where these individuals they have created a really strong bond to their trafficker.
Yeah.
And it might not take that first initial contact with them to get them out of the situation, and that willingly they want to come out. I've heard of statistic where it takes 7 times for them to leave, come back, leave, come back, leave, come back, until they're ready to really get out of that life. So, you just have to be as consistent as the trafficker. Really, these traffickers, we're, countering what traffickers are doing. So these traffickers are there with open arms when that girl is arrested, or for solicitation of prostitution, right? So they're there picking her up. They're there when she falls down. They're there when she needs something. We as community members need to be just as vigilant and just as consistent as this trafficker. We have to be there with open arms when they leave and come back, and not be embittered, not be judgmental, but be accepting, because that's what they're looking for. They're looking for acceptance. They're looking for love. And even though it's a twisted and perverted love that they think that they have with this trafficker, this perverted trust, we have to, be just as the same or even more than this trafficker. And it's really hard for them to trust us. They don't know who we are. They are not used to living this lifestyle that we live. Like, we are considered squares who are not in this lifestyle. So, to live outside of that is very scary for them. They don't, so we have to be understanding. We have to understand that they have experienced tremendous trauma, and how can we help them and support them, encourage them, embrace where they're at, and not force them to get out of a situation when they're not ready, because it takes time and it takes a willingness for that individual to want to step out and get the help that they need. Because we can do all the talking, we can say we know better, we can say we have all these resources, but it won't register until they're actually, until something has clicked and they're actually ready to get out.
Right. If someone's listening to this and they say, I think I can help, or I'd like to get more involved, what would you say to them?
I would say that's awesome. Please do so. There are tons of resources online to get involved. But first and foremost, I would say you really, one, learn more as much as you can about the issue. So then you have a better idea of where you can, help. Because a lot of times what happens is people hear about human trafficking and they automatically want to help the victims, right? But you have to be trained to help these individuals. There is a certain amount of training that is involved when it comes to learning how to speak to these individuals, how to help these individuals, because they've been in this lifestyle where they also have been taught how to manipulate other individuals, right? How to get what they need. So it's also, can put you in an unsafe situation where you can be taken advantage of and exploited as well. So really understand who you are as an individual, and then try to use your skills in the best way to help this issue. So if you go on to our website, which is nhfinternational.org, and you sign up for we have a free 101 class that you can take. In that class, there is a quiz where you can basically figure out where you fit into the puzzle of trying to combat this issue. Because I think everyone has unique skills and unique gifts and talents, and there's so much that you can do for this issue. It's just a matter of placing you in that puzzle piece and where you best fit.
Oh, well, that's wonderful information. Give us that website again, in case people didn't catch it last time. Go ahead.
It is www.n as in Nancy, H as in Harry, F as in Frank, international.org.
Great. Well, Adia, I want to thank you so much for joining me today and sharing a lot of good information. It's so important that we get this information out, and I encourage people to get involved if they're not involved, and do the survey on that website and see where you might fit in. Maybe you don't fit in, but maybe you do. So thank you so much for joining me today.
It was my pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, well, we'll talk to you again sometime. Thank you.
Thank you.